Pop psychology has taken over my feed. Every day I'm hearing these words about avoidant attachment, anxious attachment, or triggering.
They're using words that they don't really understand. A disagreement is not gaslighting. An upsetting event is not necessarily trauma. I don't know if people understand necessarily the amount of weight these words carry.
To untangle all that mess and more, today we are joined by Eisha Chopra. You probably have seen her in her many acting roles from Nirja, What the Folks, Made in Heaven, and now she has added on an interesting side quest of being a trauma-informed mental wellness coach. Somehow, being emotionally unavailable has been rebranded as nonchalant.
Is it really cool to act like you don't care? Is that what we want from each other? Someone who's not invested, someone who has thin communication.
Today's episode gets into the myth that you need to be fully healed to be ready for a true relationship.
Can you show up messy? Because isn't that what you want? You want someone who can hold you in that mess. Well, then you got to show them the mess.
Yeah.
So the self-trust is that when I show up next to a relationship, I'm perfect. Or when I show up next to the relationship, I don't mind that I'm imperfect. And I'm going to believe that you love me anyway.
Yeah.
Because I love you anyway.
Yeah. And whether you're really commitment phobic or just monogamy phobic.
The people who get labeled as commitment phobic are often just people who don't want to sleep with just one person for the rest of their life. That scares me.
Yeah.
What if I lose my attraction to that person?
So if you've ever wondered whether your dating life needs better communication, better boundaries, or just better therapy, this conversation's for you.
I've heard people say things like, oh, well, if I can't say it to you, then who can I say it to? And I'm like, nobody. You shouldn't say that.
Hello and welcome back. Today we are very pleased to be joined by Eisha Chopra. Welcome, Eisha.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us.
I'm really happy to be here.
I
Thank you.
Pop psychology has taken over my feed.
Yeah.
I don't know about yours.
Yeah, I was very drawn to pop psychology for a while also until I learned some real psychology. And then I realized how dangerous pop psychology can actually be because it is almost empowering people with a vocabulary and they're using words that they don't really understand.
Every day I'm hearing these words about avoidant attachment, anxious attachment, this love language and that, childhood trauma and this trauma. It's like we're throwing these terms around, but we don't know what they mean really.
Yeah, and I think what also happens is that there is a sort of a conflated sense of what the word might mean. So for example, a disagreement is not gaslighting. It's a disagreement. An upsetting event is not necessarily trauma.
Or triggering, right? We use that word a lot.
Yeah, so these words have, I don't know if people understand necessarily the amount of weight these words carry. And also at some level, it does minimize the actual trauma and actual triggers and actual gaslighting because some things are just conflict.
Yeah.
And we need to be able to deal with those conflicts as per appropriately, as per what they actually are. There's so much that comes over there that doesn't let you meet yourself where you're actually at. It's always asking you to be a little bit better than you are. And what does that do?
Yeah.
Shame.
Exactly. Yeah. And you always feel like you're just not quite good enough.
Yep.
Another word that I've seen floating around on social media a lot is nonchalant. The rise of the nonchalant man who's, too cool to express his true emotions. What impact do you think that has on our dating life?
But when it comes to dating, I really find myself wondering, is it really cool to act like you don't care? Is that what we want from each other? Is that what you want? Someone who doesn't care?
Yeah.
Someone who's not invested, someone who has thin communication. I see inconsistency. I see a lot of people also just talking so much about, I love it that you don't play games. But then, the games are slipped in there.
Yeah.
And so when you start doing these little moves and these little things over here and you start coming from these spaces, you are in games. Where the minute you're doing anything that's not the truth, it's a game.
It's manipulating someone, right? And someone's emotions.
Yeah, if you're conscious of what you're doing and you're conscious of a pattern playing out.
Isn't always because someone is trying to hurt your feelings. They may be afraid to openly express.
They might be trying to preserve their own feelings rather than not hurt your feelings. But I think the question to ask is, what are you preserving? Is it your heart or your self-image?
I don't want to be that person who gets rejected, maybe.
So I'll reject myself. I think that's what that nonchalance does, is that you reject yourself before another person has a chance to reject you. And it might look like nonchalance or showing that you don't care. It might even look like choosing unavailable people or chasing people that are not really interested in you. These are all ways that we reject ourselves just so that someone else doesn't get to reject us. Hey, it's over anyway. It's over before it started. Which is why dating has become exhausting. Which is why there is so much fatigue around dating, which is why you're seeing more and more people that are just dating less and less. Because it's exhausting. It's exhausting not to be yourself. It's exhausting to lie. It's exhausting to put all this effort into this thing, which, let's be honest, is consuming, and then not get anything back from it.
Right.
So a lot of times people just start coming from a space of just a nervous system burnout or a sense of so much fatigue. It's not interesting. So you don't have your true, full, vibrant self to bring to a situation because, well, let's face it, all the energy went into
the games.
Yes.
So how do we deal with this dating burnout?
I would say it's worthwhile asking yourself, where can you be vulnerable in smaller pockets of life? And what is vulnerability really? Is it just showing up, in the complete distress when you're feeling it? Or is it saying that I am safe no matter what I am feeling right now? So if we can practice this sense of safety, remind ourselves that we are safe. We're safe in our bodies. We're safe in our environment. We're safe because we trust ourselves to choose the people around us. Then we're safe to be vulnerable. So vulnerability, I would say, is a practice. It's also a skill.
Yeah.
It's not enjoyable often. It's not a show of strength on the outside, but it takes a really strong person to do that.
Yeah.
There is a lot of cognitive understanding.
Yeah.
Right? So I meet more and more people, and the people I work with also, they often enter a session or a conversation with the sense of, I know exactly what happened. I know exactly where I'm coming from.
Right.
This one was mom and this one was dad.
Yeah.
It's
like intellectualizing the situation.
Yes. But so there is a lot of storytelling, there's a lot of narrative building, but where does that get you? There is not as much feeling that feeling. There's a lot of understanding of the feeling, and there's the sharing of that understanding, but there isn't as much sharing of that emotion while you're in that state. If we could empower ourselves to feel that, because feeling your feelings is not easy, and very often when the feeling is felt, it goes.
Wow. So do you think it's possible to feel these emotions without necessarily understanding them or explaining them in words?
I think we've been feeling them a long time before we knew we were feeling them. They usually catch up with us, right? Usually we look back and we're like, oh, that's what happened.
Yeah.
Right? Because I forgot to feel it then, because my body doesn't know how to feel. How often do we come out of a conversation, an argument, we come back and we're like, I should have said that. Why didn't you think about it then? Because we shut down, we froze.
Yeah.
We didn't feel safe.
Right.
So we need to practice that safety within ourselves.
For sure. And hold that space for ourselves and by extension others as well. And that's where we can let other people into our lives.
And that's a beautiful word you brought up, hold the space. And I think that's what we can do for each other. That's one of the best things we can do for each other, because I don't think we can really show up to heal each other in that sense, but we can show up to hold each other.
Yeah.
A person really needs to do their own healing, and it's on them to do their own healing. But what we can do as people, as friends, as family, as a collective is show up and hold that space. Can you handle that depth of intensity for someone?
Right.
Do you have it in you to swim in such deep waters within yourself?
Yeah.
If you do, you're likely able to save someone from drowning in their own.
Right.
So we do need to meet ourselves deeply in order to meet another person deeply in any relationship.
Right. What would you say to folks who say, I will only be ready for a relationship once I'm fully healed?
I think healing is a constant journey, and a person who has chosen to do that inner work. So if you're traveling inward, say however much you travel inward, you got to show up for that on the outside as well. So if you're going to keep going inward, and you keep going deep into the forest, you're going to forget what it's going to look like on the other side.
Sure.
You can work all you want on your ability to forgive, and you can find, say, all those moments where you forgot how to do that or you didn't feel safe doing that. But it's only when you come out and get into another relationship, be it a friendship or a relationship, and someone hurts you, that's when you're going to know how well you did. That's how you're going to find out how did it serve you to go deep inside. So we have to show up on the outside for everything we do on the inside.
Absolutely. Every time I've gotten into a relationship, I'm like, oh, I wasn't as healed as I thought I was. That misconception that like you can ever be truly healed obviously isn't the case. But like here I am thinking I'm so secure. I've really worked on building up my sense of self-esteem. I've done all these exercise and activities to build self-trust. And the minute I'm in a situation with a romantic partner, I shrivel into this little girl who feels really insecure, who feels like you're going to leave me at any moment. And I'm like, okay, so that holds up, it shines a light on some of these areas of improvement for me. And I think that's why being in a healthy, mature relationship can mean embarking on a journey of your own healing with someone holding space for you and someone supporting you and you doing the same for them. Right?
For sure. But I'm going to push back for a minute on that. So, did you tell them that? Did you tell them that, or did you just sit here and give yourself the report card and put yourself through the test? Because the real test, I think, would be, would you feel safe letting that person know that I'm going through this right now? I know you're not going to leave me, but I feel like you will. Mm-hmm. Because that's when you're holding space for yourself. Mm-hmm. You're not trying to be better than what you are right now.
Yeah.
You're not trying to shame yourself for the work that you have done and it not showing up this way. Yeah. That's what vulnerability is. That's what really truly being in a relationship is actually sharing that. We can come here and sit on a podcast and use all the right vocabulary and say all the right things. But it's really about how we go back into those relationships, back into those spaces, and how vulnerable are we there?
Yeah.
Without the words. Without the intelligence, without the wit, without the perfectly coherent sentences. Can you show up messy? Because isn't that what you want? You want someone who can hold you in that mess. Well, then you got to show them the mess.
Yeah.
So the self-trust is for what? That when I show up next to a relationship, I'm perfect? Or when I show up next to the relationship, I don't mind that I'm imperfect. And I'm going to believe that you love me anyway.
Yeah.
Because I love you anyway.
Yeah.
One of the things I feel that may not be serving us today in relationships is that we often tend to think in binaries. So it's either your truth or my truth. Well, which one is the truth? Yeah. Or it's either this or it's either that. It's either black or it's white. So what is it? But can we say that my truth exists and your truth exists, and we're just going to hold that space for both of these truths, and we're going to honor them, and we're going to see what comes out of it, what comes out of that holding, what comes out of that container of everybody's truth and multiple truths for me too, because that is what happens, right? Like you're talking about, okay, I'm going here and I'm doing all this work and all these exercises and I'm coming out as this, independent, strong woman. That's the truth. You were that independent, strong woman in that moment, but then I went there and I shriveled up and became a little girl. That's also the truth.
Yeah.
So which one are you?
All. Like,
which one are you today?
We don't have to be bound by a rigid identity that we define.
No, and that to me is the lack of love. That to me is the ultimate lack of self-love, is not being able to hold that space for all of those truths.
The grace.
Because there is nobody who doesn't have multiple truths functioning at the same time. There is nobody who doesn't have multiple storylines.
Yeah.
And they change. They change. We just sort of need to keep meeting each other where we're at.
Right. I mean, they say, right, the ultimate sign of intelligence is knowing that two things can be true at the same time. Two opposite things can be true at the same time. And that appetite and palate for complexity and like, what the hell, sure. Like these two opposite things can be true. That's a sign of evolution, of wisdom. And in relationships can be very healthy.
I would tend to agree.
Okay. The concept of a marriage with one person for the rest of my life feels almost suffocating. Where do you think that's coming from? And do you think it's truly a commitment phobia in the way that we talk about it, or something else?
Well, often I feel that what I hear, and I've had people come to me with this sort of idea of commitment phobia, and I've realized it's actually monogamy phobia to a large extent. The people who get labeled as commitment phobic are often just people who don't want to, just sort of be exclusive to one person. They don't want to sleep with just one person for the rest of their life. Because people are available to you, I mean, otherwise
Much
for connection, people are available, but it comes down to some sort of basic things like, are you allowed to be with multiple people? Are you allowed to be intimate with multiple people? True commitment is so much deeper and so much more than that, right? True commitment is that, well, I'm committed to your life, your happiness, your growth, your well-being, just the way as I am to my own. You are my family and an extension of that, just the way that I would for myself or anyone that I love deeply.
Yeah.
So I think I would really question that, what is commitment to you? In my experience, the people I've worked with, I've often found that it is, sometimes as simple as, actually, I just don't want to be monogamous, but I do crave connection.
Yeah.
And I do crave intimacy, and I do crave all the wonderful things that come out of relationship, but I don't want to just be with one person. That scares me.
Yeah.
What if I lose my attraction to that person? That's a very sort of
Common thing.
real fear that exists between people. Somewhere I feel maybe a lack of commitment to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
That I don't entirely trust myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't entirely trust myself to be able to be there for you, to be able to show up for you, because I haven't been able to do that for myself.
Yeah. Take on that responsibility of another
also
person.
There is responsibility, and then there's also accountability. These words don't sound sexy, and they don't sound great, and they don't sound romantic, but they're not predictable. They're not necessarily peaceful. They require a lot of showing up, but they work.
Do you think that there's an opportunity to have a conversation with your partner about exploring a different dynamic, wherein they are maybe the primary source of emotional connection, but that there are other physical outlets that can
there are
arise?
so many variants to polyamory, and there's so many ways of doing it. And I think it's on a person to really discover for themselves if they are naturally polyamorous. And I think that it is something that is so unique to every couple and every person. It can look different for everybody. And even within, a relationship, it can take different forms, and it can keep evolving, and it must keep evolving. I would just say that it would be really worthwhile to continue to work on yourself, because I think that it requires a deep amount of self-work and evolution to do that, because when you're opening up your life and your relationship, there is space for a lot of things to come up over there. And people do need to be able to hold themselves in that. Stuff is going to come up. Jealousy can come up. Anything can come up. Insecurities of all kinds can come up. And as long as you're willing to do that work, feel that feeling, be honest about those things, I think that's how this would actually work in an honest way.
Have you seen it work?
I have seen it work. It works brilliantly for a lot of people. And I've also seen it really sort of help people thrive as well. And some people thrive in monogamy. Some people truly, truly thrive in monogamy and having a smaller container for their relationship.
Which do you think you'd prefer?
I don't know.
You don't know.
You just need to have that constant communication. A relationship is hard work. It's a lot of fun. It's very fulfilling. It's very nourishing. It's also work.
I think that's where we struggle. At least in my experience of Indian culture, we struggle to talk about it. It's hard, that direct communication. We love dancing around the bush. We just we'll
literally that was the beginning of the Bollywood movie, was just people dancing around the bush.
Was that symbolic the whole time? It's this is what we do in our conversations as well. One term that I've seen floating around a lot is limerence. Can you talk about the experience, what that is, and why it happens?
So, limerence is an involuntary state of a romantic obsession, where a person becomes almost addicted to what they call the LO, the limerent object, and their moods and their joy, their sadness is completely dictated by the other person's actions. So when a little bit of attention is shown, the day can spike up and go really well. But when it's taken away, you can land yourself in deep despair. And there is a lot of talk about limerence today that's kind of coming up. It was actually It was actually a term coined by Dorothy Tennov in 1979. Often limerence is caused by someone's unavailability. So limerence breeds on uncertainty. So if somebody actually showed up and loved you, limerence is not likely. It breeds in secrecy. It's not really necessarily poised to work out. So it's fantasy. So as long as the fantasy is fed and the fantasy is kept alive, the limerence is kept alive. Very often a person could meet the limerent object and they could entirely shut down. They could go into a freeze state. They could get scared. But they could go home and fantasize about that person and see a whole life kind of play out. And I think one of the reasons that limerence is showing up more and more today in the sort of psychology talk is that it is something that brings up shame for people when they're going through it. It is something that becomes a behavioral addiction, and nobody wants to admit that they had an addiction to a human being that didn't love them. So I think that the idea of it coming up so much today, I hear a lot of talk about it. Very often with limerence, you might look at your limerent object and you see a certain light in them. You see this beauty in them. You put them on a pedestal. Most of the time, you'll be limerent for someone that you do consider better than yourself. Often, that person is looking at the light in that person, and they're looking at those parts of themselves that they have disowned. So you might look at someone and say, oh my God, they're so kind, or they're so funny, or they're so smart. And very often, it's that same thing in you that you have dismissed and disowned. And you're seeing that, and you might think that, hey, well, if I get this person to choose me, then I can finally integrate with these lost parts of myself. And so the work around limerence is often to just meet those disowned parts of yourself, so that you don't need to keep searching them out in other people. It really is defined by that sort of, that very unhealthy obsession. And that's never a good thing. And that's never something that serves anyone. So if you could look at it and say that, okay, this is a portal into my healing, this is a portal into my work. If we could look at all these things that consume us, frankly, and say that, okay, that's alerting me to something that I need to work on, then these things can become opportunities.
You keep mentioning this concept of like the shadows within us. What exactly are you referring to?
A shadow is the unconscious part of your psyche. It's those parts of you that are hidden so deep in the psyche that you are unaware of them. So often people are operating from the shadows. So it could be anything. It doesn't have to only be your wounds. It could also be your greatness that's in a shadow. So it could be anything that you are hiding, not bringing to the light. Like we say, everything has a light and a shadow. We also know that there are things about us that are conscious and that are unconscious. Very often it's the unconscious that's playing out, but as Carl Jung would say, it dictates us and we call it fate.
Like, are we able to then, transmute them into something more positive or something more empowering?
Yeah, so the journey is called going into the golden shadow. So we go from the dark shadow to the golden shadow. These are parts of us. We don't want to reject them. We don't want to deny them. We talked about holding space. We want to hold space for all of it. The shadow is just something that often just needs to be met. It's the monster under the bed that when you look beneath, you see that, okay, it's not all that scary. It's often just a wounded inner child or something that happened that made you act a certain way, something that got set. And now it's playing out. So there are many things in the shadow, not just the negative emotions, not just the repressed emotions. Your love could be in your shadow. Your greatness could be in your shadow. Your glory could be in your shadow. So could your anger. So could your jealousy. So could your envy. So could your guilt, your shame. That all emotions have a way of being in the shadow and in the light. But we can work with them and we can bring them into the light so that they do come into their goldenness, so to speak.
Yeah, and it can be very scary to venture into the depths of the forest and to not know what you're going to find. And I think that as humans, like, we do fear the unfamiliar, obviously. And once we are able to perceive something, I think it is sort of rid of its power to terrify us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's like sort of like looking at a ghost,
Yeah. It's like once you see it, it's like, oh, that was it. Okay.
I haven't seen one yet, so I don't know. But what you said about going into the forest, it actually makes me think of the mythology that we have around the Ramayana, right? And if you look at the great epic tales that we have in our scriptures, the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, the princes often left and they were exiled to the forest, right? And back then, that was also a way of reaching your actualization. So when a prince was to become a king, one of the things they had to do was to go into the brahmachar. So they were meant to go into the forest and they were meant to meet the demons. And if you look at the tales, they often went in there and they met the monsters and they slayed the monsters. So when it comes to the shadow work within us, we do go into that forest, but that forest is just something very deep inside ourselves. We go there, we meet the shadows, and we slay the monsters, but then we bring them out. We bring them out into the light.
Stronger.
And if you look at the Ramayana, what happened when Lord Ram returned from the forest? It was Diwali. It was the festival of lights.
You mentioned how so often we feel things retrospectively and looking back. What is the role that my childhood plays in my romantic life?
It's probably that the nervous system is looking for the familiarity of the script. So if you say had a father that was maybe emotionally unavailable to you, that is your understanding of how your nervous system knows how to be loved. So the nervous system is going to feel safe in that uncertainty, and it will seek out the uncertainty, and it will feel like chemistry. But what the nervous system really craves is safety.
Right.
And that is actually nervous system compatibility. It's where do you feel safe, not where do you feel activated and where you want to go do all of those things. Those can be important and interesting things at times, but nervous system compatibility comes from safety. Where do you feel soothed? Where do you feel relaxed? Where do you feel the safety of just dropping into your body so you can just be yourself, no matter what that is, good, bad, ugly.
I really like what you said about how we have the power to make different choices and kind of supersede that really primal craving that our nervous system gives us for familiarity. It is hard because you may not get the sparks. You may not even feel the attraction at first, right? And you need to give it patience. And it's really hard to figure out like what is compatibility and safety and then what is just like I'm not interested in this person.
Yeah, we don't want to be apathetic in our romances.
Exactly. In Indian culture, for so long, our parenting style has been probably informed by a lot of factors, including just one's need to survive. How do you think that's played into like our love lives nowadays?
It would be a little difficult to generalize, Indian culture as such, because we have so many different cultures. It would be fair to make a blanket statement that we prioritize harmony over anything else. Most of us did not grow up with any boundaries, and inserting boundaries feels like a rejection of love. So very often I've heard people say things like, oh, well, if I can't say it to you, then like who can I say it to? And I'm like, nobody. You shouldn't say that. But I think that what kind of happens, and I see this in families, I see this in my own family, it's really hard for us to bring up, say, a grievance or something that's not working and for the other person to not get triggered by it. But can you hold that? Can you hold that? Can you hold the fact that I am hurt and you may not think it's your fault? And without us getting into that game of defensiveness and sort of
blame,
all of that, can we just hold the fact that this is how this person feels right now? And I think what often happens in Indian households, I mean, we are a deeply feeling race, that's just sort of ingrained in our DNA. We feel emotions, we don't like to name them. So behaviors by sort of authority figures, older figures, parental figures are pretty much just seen as a free pass. And very often this idea of the generational gap becomes a big sort of an explanation. Well, in our time it was like this. Okay, well, the time is long gone. And you have to kind of have the sort of very basic intelligence of placing yourself here and now. So what is that collective Indian upbringing that we've all gone through is that we don't often talk about those things, We save sharing for the dinner table when we're supposed to be eating our food.
And even then, it's all veiled, maintaining the harmony, like you said.
That sort of intolerance we have for our discomforts and for our uncertainties, I don't think we're taught to hold that. We are taught to show up when something happens. If somebody dies, you'll find that the entire community and collective is there for all those 13 days, and they will be there. But they don't really necessarily, show up for you in the other grief that you might feel in life. It's sort of like a prescribed grief and emotion.
Yeah.
It's almost like you have to have permission.
For sure. Dil Dhadakne Do. Have you seen that film?
Yeah.
But like the scene at the dinner table, where the family is sitting around and there are all these strong emotions and nobody's able to talk about them openly until one day it all bursts and everybody just says exactly what they were thinking, right? Yeah. But if we could have those conversations in healthy, mature ways, small ways, every time that you felt a boundary was crossed or you felt disrespected. Like, I think respect is very important in Indian families. And for a child to assert that I didn't feel respected by my parent in that moment is a big, violation.
The only sign of disrespect can be when a child answers back to a parent.
Exactly. But what if a child is genuinely expressing a need that went unmet, or a child is expressing that they didn't appreciate something that a parent did? That's answering back now, right?
But then here we are sitting in therapy rooms exactly for that reason. It's basically to see what were those unmet needs and where are you trying to get them met by somebody else.
From someone else. And often it comes up in an intimate attachment context, right? Because if it's not your primary caregivers, it's your romantic partners who are there to meet those needs.
Well, as one of my teachers said, trauma lives in intimate spaces. Why is that? Why does trauma show up in intimacy? Because we come here hoping to be met, hoping to be met as ourselves in our truth. But this is our truth. These are our triggers. Ideally, we want someone who has the emotional capacity to hold that. Yeah. Because it's a big job. We tend to choose our partners based on, tell me their height. If you look at a dating app, what do you see, right? Yeah. Height, location, age,
income.
I mean, is it going to matter how tall someone is on the worst day of your life? Is it going to matter when, you have aging parents and the fear of mortality is hitting you? Is it going to matter that, they were 6 feet tall? Mm-hmm. Probably not. Probably not. And it's okay. It's okay to be attracted to 6 feet.
So Eisha, so many of us know you as the amazing actor that you are. What drew you to this new sort of field of study?
I would say it's the same thing that drew me to acting in the first place. There was always this curiosity about the human mind, about the motivations. Why do we do the things that we do? I found that when you find the right person to work with, when you find the right fit, and when you show up in honesty, in courage, in willingness, and in my case, just a space of just being done with your own bullshit, you really sort of reach that place of saying that, okay, my frustration today has exceeded my comfort zone. Right. And it's time for a change.
Right.
And as I did that, and the more and more that I went deeper into my own therapy, I began to study, and I found that it was that same curiosity, that same passion for the human mind that got me to this place where I was ready to give that back. And as I kept studying, my trainers and my teachers started sending people to work with my way, and I began to work with them, and I found it incredibly fulfilling. Yeah. And here I am.
Lovely.
Back with you.
So if people are interested to reach out to learn more about your coaching, is that something you'd be open to?
That's something I would love for people to reach out and find me. And if this conversation resonates with people, then it would be wonderful to work with people that are on that same trajectory and want to open that door to healing.
Absolutely. Thank you for this really lovely conversation.
Thank you.
I certainly derived great insight into myself, my own psyche, and how I'm going to approach and show up for relationships differently moving forward. And I'm sure our audience will as well.
Thank you so much. It's been lovely being here. I've always loved talking to you.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do be sure to hit subscribe, share it with your friends, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.